Welcome back to the morning show.
Good morning. Hope you're doing well on this Tuesday morning here in Ohio, where it has decided to be August here in November.
Isn't it fantastic?
Yeah, I think it's going to get into pushing 80 today. Pushed 80 yesterday.
Don't spook the weather gods, man. Like, we have sunshine. We're not supposed to see this sunshine.
We do have sunshine. But I'm like fully ready for hoodie. Like, I'm ready to go Bill Belichick here. Are
you okay with the cutoff, like showing off the arms?
I'm not, not that redneck. But ready for fall cold weather, and it just won't slow down.
Yeah, we had leaf peeping season, and then we went back to summer.
Then we're back to beach season. So it has been, I guess, enjoyable. It's like almost to the point where you got to think about turning the AC on.
No, it is. Yeah. You have to turn the AC on in the car.
We need to turn it on. Well, the car, but not the house. In the house, we've just said open the windows.
Oh, yeah.
You'd be fine.
Sweat it out. Like, come on, guys. We're not touching anything. My electricity bill will stay the same. But, like, right. So you're like, the leaves are all gone. It's 70 degrees outside, but Starbucks has Christmas drinks out. Like, could 2020 get any weirder? Like, we are...
That's true, yeah.
A twilight zone of aliens dropping pigs from the sky or something at this point. It would only be more normal than what's happening.
Yep, we just finished here at First Baptist Heath. We just finished our mission conference.
Woo!
Where I got a handy new mug from New Orleans with love from Philip Vandercook from the Port Ministry there. So, yeah, it's good coffee, good coffee mug.
Love New Orleans. Excellent plug. Also an excellent seminary for those of you who are considering seminary. Go to New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary, nobts.edu. I'm plugging it, man.
Go ahead, plug away. Plug away.
Hey, we do have a bit of sad news to talk about this morning. Over the weekend, we found a beloved treasure of both Canadian and American icon. Alex Trebek passed away.
Yeah, and he's been sick for a while. I hadn't followed it as closely, and I knew he was sick, but he's been continuing to do the show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's impressive. So very sad, kind of an icon. I mean, I remember growing up watching Alex Trebek. 7:30.
I don't know what to do. Like, who's going to feed me my trivia answers? And like that was my goal in life when I was like 10, was someday I'm going to get on Jeopardy. And I'd even prepared myself for like, because there's always that, like, after they come back from the first break, there's the interview with each of them, and you have like 45 seconds to talk about something crazy that you do in your life. And I'm like, what's going to be that 45? So if Trebek was going to interview, like, what would be the 45-second thing that you would, the funny story?
Yeah, I don't have one. But you should be the next host.
I'm not cool enough.
There you go. That could be. No. You could
to be Trebek.
Put your application to be.
You have to
Trebek.
have, and you guys remember this. Like, Trebek had the perfect coiffed mustache, right? And he would go back and forth between the caterpillar being on his lip, and
he was a perfect trivia host because he was like serious but yet lovable.
Yeah, that's not me.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
Sarcastic and
I
very
agree
unlovable.
with that. Yeah. So who should, if the Jeopardy is going to go forward, who should be the next host?
I don't know. I mean, because the only other thing you can look to is Bob Barker, right? And then Drew Carey took over, and it's like...
Not the same, yeah.
Right? It changed the dynamic of the show.
It doesn't even feel like it's Drew Carey. It feels like it's someone else.
So who steps in? Like, maybe Ken Jennings? Like, I thought that might be...
Ken Jennings? Who's that?
Yeah, Ken Jennings is the guy who won the most amount of money. He had the longest run. Not the most money. He had the longest run. And he's got his own little following of people. He does a trivia drop every day.
Yeah.
I don't know. Ryan Reynolds would be kind of funny.
That's too much.
Or too over the top.
Yeah, or do you just end it? End it? Is it just, Trebek was so iconic that it's just...
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you can't... It'll always be his show, and it's hard to come in behind him.
Yeah.
Maybe we should ask our guest today, Dr. Rainer.
I think our guest might actually be the perfect candidate to take over.
Oh, that's true. Wise, calm, comedic. That would be a lovely three. We're going to have to ask him who his recommendation is.
So this morning we are excited to have Dr. Thom Rainer from churchanswers.com. Really, a man who's been a tremendous help to so many pastors and church leaders around the world, really. Been especially helpful. I know I've been on the blog and the podcast, following those things over this year, 2020. Just a lot of helpful information about how do we navigate these things that are going on? How do we walk through these things? How do we continue to reach people and be what the church is about? And so we're going to bring Dr. Rainer on and talk about the future of the local church this morning.
All right, let's bring him in. Live from the interwebs, we have Dr. Thom Rainer. Hello, sir.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
We're doing good.
I'm impressed, sir, first off, because most time the guests come on, we see their office and we saw like all of their books and we're trying to figure out what they're reading, but you have picked a lovely, lovely background, sir.
The only reason I picked this background, because if I was over that way, the sun would be in my face. This has nothing to do with the background. So I had to shift on my table just so that I wouldn't be squinting into the sun. I'm in my study. You see one of my wife's paintings behind me, is what you see.
Wow, that is impressive.
Yeah, she's a pretty impressive lady. I don't understand her taste in husbands, but she's a pretty impressive lady. And you know what I realized? I know you don't know that because that's a rhetorical question. I dated my wife 6 years before we got married, and we've been married almost 44 years next month. A half of a century with the same woman. Half of a century. So it's an incredible act of stamina, patience, and a little bit of idiocy on her part to stick with me for those 50 years. But yeah, that's her painting. You know, I could do this, guys, and we could start looking at books and things like that. But I'm not going to do that because I don't want the sun in my eyes. I'm too old for this kind of stuff.
This is fantastic. I appreciated you said half a century, and I was like, I hope he's coming around with a different tone on the back end of this story, because we'll have your wife on next week, and she'll give us a completely different story.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will. My favorite response to Nellie Jo over the last 50 years is, I agree. and it's worked well. It has worked well.
So
Great lady.
You are one of the most smartest people in Christian. Just the amount of research that you do is incredible, and as Dave said earlier, incredibly grateful for how you do the research and how you write about it and make it accessible. And so one of the things we really wanted to kind of dive in and ask you about this morning was, obviously we're in the midst of a pandemic, and COVID has affected so many random things. But instead of looking at kind of all the negative things, right, which I think everyone flips their Chicken Little, the sky's falling thing, how have you seen God use COVID to sharpen the focus of ministry within the local church?
One of the first things we start talking about when we talk about COVID, and I like to refer to the era that we're in as a post-quarantine era. We're still in COVID. We're hoping for the vaccine, but we're still very much in COVID. And as a matter of fact, as you're interviewing me right now, we're peaking in many areas again, right. the second peak that is going on. And as we begin to look at what is going on, the analogy always breaks down, and so I don't want to take it too far. But it's much analogous to the Old Testament Jews in the wilderness. That's where we are right now. The pandemic is the wilderness. The Canaan, or the promised land, is wherever God will lead us. And though we don't know the specificity of that, we know that he is leading us in a new direction. But here's what we need to remember. The Jews, while they were in the wilderness, cried out to go back to Egypt. Egypt for us is 2019 or before. For some churches, it's 2015. Some churches, it's 2010. Some churches are still trying to get to 1980 or 1990. But we cannot go back. We cannot go back. And what has been really encouraging, and I would say at this point, it's about 5% of churches, and that is a rough estimate. That's not a research data. That's just a rough estimate. About 1 out of 20 churches have said, we are going to use this new era as a blank slate. Obviously, we cannot do away with everything. We cannot sell our building. We're not going to fire everybody. But we're not going to do away with all of our ministries. But we're going to say, if we had a blank slate as a church, what would we do? And 95% of the churches right now are saying, okay, we're going to tweak this program, this ministry, and then once the people come back, we'll be back to normal. No, you will not. There's no such thing as a new normal. There's a new reality. We don't know all the details of the new reality, but what is encouraging is an increasing number, a distinct minority right now, but an increasing number of churches are saying, let's use this as an opportunity to say, if we started all over, what would our church look like? What ministries would we have? What type of emphases would we have? What would we do with our budget? What would we do with our staffing if we had the opportunity to start over? There are some churches that are doing that. A second thing that I'm seeing that is very encouraging is the guy on our team who's our digital marketer says, guess what, Tom? Prayer is trending. Now, what he's saying by that is a lot of people on social media and other digital forums are talking more about prayer. And so the emphasis upon prayer has become more powerful, more obvious in churches. And so is it a prayer of desperation? Maybe a little bit, but any kind of prayer is better than no prayer. And that's where we are, watching churches pray more. And then a third thing, blank slate, prayer more. And then a third thing that I would see is more churches are realizing that if we don't really start moving beyond ourselves, beyond our walls, we're sunk. Yeah. If we're not obedient to Acts 1:8 or Matthew 28 or any of the Great Commission or outwardly focused passages, if we're not obedient there, we are sunk. And one of the great shifts that churches are going to have to make in this era, most churches spend about 2 to 3% of their ministry time. That's how much time church members do ministry through the church. They spend about 2 to 3% of their time in outwardly focused ministries. The other 97, 98% of the time is spent on things for us. If we shift that to 10, 20, 30, maybe God willing, 50%, we will see an incredible new wave of people being reached for Christ and healthier churches. So those are the three primary notes of hope that I'm seeing even during this post-quarantine era.
Yeah, that's really good. Just on a follow-up, just something even kind of personally wondering your opinion on. What do you a lot of churches, we, for instance, pre-COVID, we were doing some live streaming of our worship services, but they were not really great quality. We weren't putting a lot into it. Obviously, with COVID, we've shifted. We've made that a priority. What's the future of the church online as far as live streaming, online churches, online campuses? Is that something that's going to last? Because, obviously the challenge is creating community online. So will that be something that lasts, or will people, you think, eventually say, no, I need to be there in person?
Okay, your question is loaded with about 7 corollaries, and I'm not going to try to unpack all of those.
Okay.
The first thing that I want to say is the gathered church, the in-person gathered church, is not going away. I think if I came back 20 years from now, I'd be able to say, I told you so. Gosh, at my age, I don't know if I'd be able to come back 20 years now. But anyway, theoretically speaking, 20 years from now, we will still see the gathered in-person church. So let's put that in one section, okay, by itself. Now you're asking the question about the digital church. The digital church has all kinds of subpoints to it. Are we talking about streaming services? Are we talking about something like your web page? Are we talking about social media? What are we talking about, when we talk about the digital church? One of the things that the healthiest churches are doing in the post-COVID or post-quarantine era, one of the things that they're doing is that they are seeing the digital world not as a tool, but as a mission field. If we change our mindset, it will make us change our methodology. And having said that, the digital mission field is an incredibly open mission field. Let's look at one aspect of it. You asked about digital services. So let's just look at streaming services for just a moment. It has been incredible that many churches have streaming services. One pastor of a church of running 40 people said, I now have a mega church. It had 2,000 people tuned in. But that was the first week. And
that's
then the
Baptist
next week it was down to 200. And he's wondering how bad was his preaching that he lost 1,800 people. Those numbers are declining because the newness of it is going away.
Sure.
And because there's so many of them. But listen, a church will continue to meet in person, but it must not abandon the digital mission field. The digital mission field, just in streaming services, would be the people who are viewing that. Who's viewing that? A lot of them are local. A lot of them are out of town. Maybe a few of them are even out of the country. So for all of them, you have the opportunity to pray for them. I'm really encouraged for the churches that are using digital guest cards or digital prayer cards to interact with people who want some type of interaction that is taking place. So that's part of the mission field. Here's another part of the mission field. The people who are local who are watching there, are you cannibalizing potentially your in-person service because they're watching digitally? Maybe so, but the point would be either they're unable to come physically or they're not that committed anyway, and they would have faded away without the digital service, which we're seeing as well. So keep the digital service going, but have a strategy in place to see people come to the gathered service as much as possible. How do you do that? A lot of churches are being successful by saying, okay, we're going to stay in contact with those in the digital service. We're going to ask as many of them as would like to come into a 6 to 8 week Bible study digitally. And from that, those who are local, you're able to find a number of those who are now feeling comfortable enough to come to the gathered service. So now you have a mission field that you're not only reaching digitally, but you're attempting to develop personal and in-person relationships. Now, I just unpacked 5 of the corollaries of the question that you had, and I think it had 7 or 8 of them, but there are all kinds of possibilities. The summation of this is that in-person is not going away, but digital should not be abandoned either. One final word, and then I'll let you ask the next question so we don't have to stay on here to noon. The next part of this is, if your church in the digital world doesn't have a website, it must. Yes, so all of those who are listening, watching, your church must have a website. Now, the next thing that I would say is church members don't come to websites, church websites. It's rare. It is rare. Your website should be for guests, for those who are looking for something about your church. And what I would say to any of those who are interested, get your smartphone, put your URL in there, put your church URL in there, and without scrolling, tell me that you're able to see the times of the service and the physical address of the church. I don't care what else is in there. Tell me that you're able to see that. If not, you're basically telling guests you're not interested in them coming to your church and hearing about the Savior who saves, not hearing about the gospel. So the simple thing about websites, you can put all kind of things in there, but what guests are looking for, who comprise over 9 out of 10 of those who come to church websites, what guests are looking for is your physical address for their GPS, obviously, and the times of service. They may want other things about kids. They may want to be able to see a streaming service at some point, but those are the 2 things they're coming for. If we're serious about reaching the digital mission field, why don't we do something very simple, is make sure those items, again, most people are looking at their phone, not their laptop, not their Mac. Most of them are looking here. And if they can see that without scrolling, then you basically told them, we are interested, you are welcome, come see us. All right, I unpacked 4 or 5 of them. That's enough.
No, we're like just kind of in awe, soaking it all up at the moment, sir. Thank you.
I can tell you're whelmed.
I'm afraid to ask another question.
That's
so,
true.
Rob, you got to take over.
That's true. Actually, I did want to admit, so we got to interview Dr. Chitwood for an upcoming episode, and he said glowingly words about you. Apparently, you were his PhD supervisor, sir.
He was my PhD student, and one of the best, I will say that. I also recommended him to the last church where he pastored, which was First Baptist Mount Washington, before he went to Kentucky Baptist Convention. And I also recommended him, one of many, to the IMB. So we have a lot of close connections. And in some ways, he had a role in introducing my daughter-in-law to my son, who was at that church. So I'm trying to think, I got 11 or 12 grandkids, and I think 4 or 5 of them came from that family. So, the introductions had a lot to do with it. So I'm very grateful to Dr. Chitwood. Smart man, glad he's at the IMB.
Are you saying that because you're related to him now? Like that there's a connection, or do you like?
No. He was pastor of the church where my current daughter-in-law was at the time.
Oh, that's right.
No relation whatsoever. I mean, it is Kentucky. If we dug deeply enough, there might be some connections we're not aware of. But to my knowledge, no. And I can't even say anything more about that. I was in Kentucky at the time, but my home state is Alabama. So who knows what happens when you start digging things there.
We will get to that conversation.
And I'm in Tennessee now. Good gravy train.
We're going to talk some SEC football in a few minutes here, but I did want to ask you something, kind of, and because of the quarantine issue that we're in, the post-quarantine stuff, church membership, right? I know you've written extensively about it, and the importance of it. But how does that factor in when we've got people online, we've got people kind of, I can't be here because I'm quarantining, I'm a high risk, and then you have the people who are coming in, so why is it so important and so crucial for discipleship, the aspect of church membership?
Church membership is the raising of the hand, metaphorically, that says, I am committed to God through this local church. I really get a bit frustrated when people say church membership is an antiquated term and an antiquated concept. That's basically saying 1 Corinthians 12 needs to be ripped out of the Bible, and we don't need to talk about members of the body of Christ. I know what they're saying. It's not like a country club. It's not like a civic club. I get that. But let's don't abandon the biblical concept of membership just because we don't like what contemporary culture is saying about it. Membership, biblically, whether you're looking at the church in Acts, Corinth, Ephesus, all through the Bible, when you look at membership biblically, it is a commitment and a subsidiary to accountability. It is raising your hand and saying, I am committed to the people here, and I am going to be accountable to them. That's what membership is. Now, I am convinced, beyond a shadow of a doubt, looking at it biblically, that it is, with extraordinary exceptions like Paul being in prison and some people in some persecuted areas, I am convinced that it is almost impossible to grow spiritually unless you are connected to a local church. Think about it. All of the spiritual disciplines from the book of Acts to the first few chapters of Revelation, where we have the 7 churches, all of those are connected to a context of a local church. There is no expectation that you are doing such solo. The expectation is that you are in a community, that you have identified with a community, and that you have accountability in that community. So when I say something like the book I wrote, I Am a Church Member, I am saying it with not only my enthusiasm, but full biblical authority. If we don't make church membership what the Bible says it is, we're going to be falling short. Now, having said that, how does that work in a digital or a post-quarantine world? Well, first of all, people are still going to be making commitments to the local church. And I think that where we're in now in this post-quarantine era, where some are coming in person and some are digitally, that's going to settle out pretty soon, and the digital world will be our primary mission field, except for those who are physically unable to come to the gathered service, and the gathered service will continue to be our main point of contact, and that will be church membership. Having said that, I do see a lot about church membership, particularly the entry point class, like a membership class or a 101 or whatever you call it. I do see that becoming more digital and available because church too often has made come to the building as a part of the ministry instead of be in the world and be in the community as part of the ministry. So I can see membership classes having more and more digital presence in the future, and that will be one of the moves that we'll see in the post-quarantine era. I don't know if I answered your question, but yours only had about 8 corollaries to it, so I tried to focus.
You asked the simple questions, Rob. You know, if you're going to bring a complex question,
I'm pragmatic. That's why.
So right now, if you look at the state of the church and where the evangelical church is at today, there seems to be, maybe a corollary, seems to be a lot of young church planters, a lot of young guys jumping in, planting churches, leading churches. As we look to the future, right now there's a lot of that sort of negativity, I think, in our country anyway, about the future. What gives us hope about the future of the church as we look down the road in 5-10 years? What do you think the things are that should give us hope? Hopefully I didn't add too much stuff in there.
No, that's only about 11 corollaries.
All right.
If I can focus on that. I did hear you say something about church planners and young church planners. Just as a point of note, church planners have always been young as a rule. There are exceptions to the rule, but church planning it is so challenging. And I have one of my three sons who is a church planner, who is now my pastor, Jess, in Spring Hill, Tennessee. And he has been the number 2 man in 2 church plants and now the lead pastor in the current church plant where he is. And so it's tough if you don't have the energy of youth to do what is necessary with the church plant. What do I see as hope? Well, it's you look at culture, and if you stay on social media, you're going to fill your mind with a bunch of garbage, and you're going to basically say this is a bad world that we're in. But you know what? Guess what? It wasn't that significantly different in 33, 34 AD going through the first century.
Thank you.
It was just like that. And in the first century, there was this awful tool of technology. Today it's called the internet, and the internet, oh my goodness, it's this awful tool. No, the tool in itself is neutral. It is how the tool is used. But there was this awful tool in the first century, and it was called the Roman roads. And the Roman roads were an incredible invention of technology. They had been building for the first 2 centuries prior to the birth of Christ, but they began to be really used in a dynamic way in the first century. People could travel over water that they no longer could travel over because they built bridges. They could travel through wooded areas, and now they have cleared the way. Some of them had culverts on the side, so there would be proper drainage. And here's the point. The Roman government built the Roman roads for the military. They built it to keep the Roman Empire intact. It was a control mechanism. But guess what happened? God used that for his glory. God used the Roman roads to reach the world, the known world at the time. And though they could travel over sea, most of the traveling took place over those Roman roads. That was one of the massive inventions of technology. And the engineering that was in place to build the Roman roads in the first century is still a marvel today in the 21st century. So let's not listen to the world around us and say there is no hope any more than the first century Christians would have been. Let me recommend to anybody who cares to listen to me, if you really want to find out what was going on in the first century that'll give you hope for the 21st century, read Michael Green's classic 1970 book, Evangelism in the Early Church. It is one of the most historically well documented, and if you stick with the book, inspiring. I have read it now, I'm going to say 20 plus times. And wow. There are times that I will read it one year and then the next. It's not always every year, but it is a reminder of what the early church was doing and what they were up against. We may be up against culture, but that's nothing new. This is the world that we live. Yeah. They do not love us because we are not of them and we are not in them, but we are to go to them. End of lecture. I'm sorry.
No. This is a free lecture. This is fantastic. I don't have to pay for this. There's no papers for this, right?
Only if you want.
No, thank you. That's great. And you're right. So often we get so focused on our circumstances, we lose the reminder of what God is actually doing, and how He's working and bringing hope through all these situations.
And wait, one more corollary. One more. I didn't cover enough of your points because you had too many in your question. But let me just go back to one of those. What does this mean for the local church today?
Yes.
The early church, in order to meet the challenges, did not necessarily look at the world around them and say, let's solve the problems. They just went forward with the gospel. And so if you're in a church and you're saying, what can I do? My church is unhealthy. We don't have unity. We have facility problems. We have finance problems. We have problems of traditionalism. You just start naming the list that is out there. Try something radical. Try just leading your church to reach people. And I'm not going to programize that. I'm just going to say, if you become highly intentional about reaching people, the church will get healthier in discipleship, ministry, worship, unity, fellowship, all of those other areas. See what happens when you become obedient to the Great Commission.
That's an excellent point. We try to figure out all these different programmatic things. We figure out what's the next new book, and really it's a simple thing, going back to the basic things that we all know we're supposed to be doing. And when we focus on the basic things, there's some big results that can happen from it.
Right.
Oh, very good. We're going to transition to Fast Five, but just as we do that, a reminder, you can get more info, lots of great stuff at churchanswers.com from Dr. Rainer, and you guys have a daily blog, is it a daily podcast?
We have, it almost comes to daily because we have 4 podcasts. We have Rainer on Leadership, which is the older and larger of them. Then we have Revitalize and Replant, where I alternate co-hosts with Mark Clifton and Kevin Ezell. And then we have EST with Thom Rainer, and that's doing extremely well. And then our newest one is More Than Money. It's about Christian finance with Art Rainer. Wow. So each of those are weekly, so we have 4 a week through those 4.
Very good.
I'm noticing a lot of Rainer in the Church Answer podcast. Was that on purpose? Like,
oh, I tell you what. The good news about my 3 sons is they're so much like their mother, and in fact, I told her that yesterday. I said, these sons are just incredible, and I said, they're really like you, and she said, I know. So she confirmed that as well. I love having them as a part of the Church Answers team. We're a small team. We only have 16 people that are scattered throughout North America, but 4 of them, counting me, are Rainers, and it's a great team. I love having my sons with me.
That's fantastic. All right, sir. Unfortunately, we're going to completely unredeem the time here. And I'm about to ask you 5 questions for our audience to get to know Dr. Rainer just a little bit differently. Are you ready, sir?
I am ready.
All right. So apparently, you're from the great state of Alabama, as is my wife. She's from Birmingham. But we're on a little bit of different sides of the SEC football spectrum. So I'm going to poke you a little bit, sir.
Yes.
As an ardent Bama fan, who has the better statue outside of Bryant-Denny Stadium, Bear Bryant or Nick Saban?
Oh, Bear Bryant, clearly. Bear Bryant.
So your loyalties go to the houndstooth, huh?
No, you didn't ask that question. You can't play with. You didn't ask what loyalty was. You said who has the better statue. Saban is doing this. It's like he's about to chew someone out. Bear is standing dignified. Okay, so you ask statue questions. Big gravy train. Don't twist my words. I get enough of that in other places. So, statue, I like Bear's the best. They're both great coaches for different eras. I know you don't have time, but I'm still say this. When I was a student at the University of Alabama, my apartment was outside the practice field. You couldn't see the practice going on, but I could sit in my lounge chair and watch Bear climb the tower, which was overlooking the players. And I would look with my binoculars, and I would watch him as he led practice. So I love both coaches, but don't twist my words. That's just
I'm
really
not.
unfair.
I'm just, as a final statement, War Eagle.
Wait a minute.
I figured at some point you're going to have technical glitches. I'm surprised you've not had them yet. So obviously you're an extensive writer, sir. What have you found is the best cure for writer's block?
There's no such thing as writer's block.
Oh.
So there's no need for a cure. What you do when you write is you just write. And even if it's bad writing, you continue to write. And as you write, this perceived block will go away. It's a mindset. So I have felt like, I don't know anything. I'm not going to write. I felt that way on midnight about 7 years ago, and a blog post was due the next morning at 7. And I said, I don't have anything to write. And I just started writing just because that's the way you do it. I mean, if you want to get in shape, you don't snap your fingers, you exercise, and of course have the right diet, but you exercise. If you want to write, you just write. And even if it's mumble jumble, but I started writing at midnight 6 or 7 years ago, and sent it to my team to post at 7 a.m. And I said, oh, this is a throwaway. And it was a blog post called I Am a Church Member. And it went viral, and within a month it had over 1 million views, and then eventually became a little book called I Am a Church Member that is now one of the best-selling Christian nonfiction books of all time. That was my writer's block moment. There's no such thing as writer's block. It's like having exercise block. How do you get over exercise block? You just start exercising.
No, you just accept the way you look and celebrate that. That's how you get over exercise block.
Yes, exactly.
I'm a good Southern Baptist Baptist. I appreciate. All right, so we have done some research, found out you're an extensive music fan, particularly of a certain genre and era. So we're not going to ask you about that, but rather, when you rake the leaves, what do you listen to? What's the music
I don't rake the leaves.
I don't rake the leaves.
So, I mean,
we're stone cold in these. This is fantastic.
I don't rake the leaves. What's his name out there? He's raking the leaves right now. So
go ask him what he's listening. Could you run and ask him what he's listening?
You want to just ask me what I listen to when I'm doing passive activity?
Certainly, sir. Maybe that would be better.
Rather than my iTunes selection, which does have a lot of 60s songs, I usually just listen to 60s on Sirius XM.
Oh. So are Beach Boys versus Beatles then, if we're going to go in the 60s?
Okay, it's a tie between Beach Boys and Beatles as long as you don't go past 1965.
Ooh.
Once you go past 1965, it becomes Beach Boys over Beatles. The Beatles after 1965 were dropping too much acid, and their songs too.
I'm sorry, there's too much?
What's that?
You said there's too much acid? So there was a point before that.
Their mild amount of acid in the early 60s gave us some of the classic, almost folksy songs like You Haven't Even Heard Them, Do You Want to Know a Secret? And then we go to past 1965 and we get to the White Album, and we've got these hard songs like Back in the USSR.
Yeah.
You don't know how lucky you are, babe. Back in the USSR. Oh man, they're just total acid songs. So Beach Boys held their consistency throughout the 60s and even into the 70s. The Beatles deteriorated after 1965.
Okay, the next time you come on the show, we're going to debate Brian Wilson versus Paul McCartney as songwriters, but that is not your next question. So you've obviously talked about your wife. She's an amazing woman, gifted painter. So we want to know, what's the worst gift that you ever bought her?
I bought her an original painting from a European artist of the first part of the 20th century, thinking that she would like it. It wasn't, don't hear me wrong, it wasn't one of these multi-$1,000s, but it was just neat. It was neat. She does not like to be told what type of painting to get. And I don't even know where it is. I was so excited about it. She wants to buy her own paintings or either paint her own paintings, as you can see behind me right now. And she has her own favorite artist. My picking out her painting was basically like her saying, I'm going to get you some music and I want you to like this music. So that was one of the worst gifts that I ever gave her, and thanks for bringing up that time.
You're welcome. Well, it's also marriage advice for us. Thank you. As almost 50 years of marriage.
Oh man, y'all are so discombobulated.
Welcome to the morning show.
That's our MO, sir. That is our MO. Your one final question. We're going to go a little philosophical and possibly existential.
This will be great.
Can you please answer to us, sir, why doesn't Tarzan have a beard?
I don't know why Tarzan does not have a beard. I guess if you're swinging on vines in the forest, you're going to scrape your face a lot. I don't know. And should Superman have a beard? And if he does, what kind of razor would cut his beard?
Oh, does it have
to have kryptonite blades in it? And if it does that, does it kill him while he's shaving?
Wow.
If he gets a nick, is he dead?
Wow, you got to use that. We have to use that.
You are the smartest person ever.
That's a debate, dude.
We'll have to use that for another Fast Five. I would say we could use it for Paul Chitwood, but we already recorded that interview. So
hold on. As the smartest person, so we asked Dr. Dew of New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary, I asked him, would Lightning McQueen buy car insurance or life insurance?
Who?
Okay. Well, see, that is actually probably the better response.
Who?
From the Cars movie. You know.
I don't know that stuff.
Okay. Yeah. I think we
have run our course.
We've run. Yeah. We're.
Oh, you ran your course with the first question that had so many corollaries. I didn't know where to land. Good gravy train.
I'm both like excited and incredibly humble at this interview today, sir. Thank you so much for coming on. So real quick before we say goodbye, sir, how can the viewers get in touch with you, follow you? Plug away, sir.
Well, everything that, not everything, but so much of what I do is at churchanswers.com.
Yes, sir.
I made an intentional decision a few years ago to do away with the personal branding, if you will, of thomrainer.com, because I thought it was more important to continue the ministry of what was going on with several people, not just one person. And so everything now can be found at churchanswers.com. And I would encourage folks, there's a community there of 2,000 people. And when you click on, you can get a free subscription. I think it's 30 days or 60 days. I don't know. And even if you stay, it's only $9.97 a month. And it is the best place to get ongoing. You can get your question answered about anything about the church within just a few hours of that site. And it's where I recommend everybody go. So go to churchanswers.com and look at the membership opportunity that is there.
Amen.
Very good. Well, thank you for coming on. We will be sure that if we do this again, we have our questions cleaned up. Yes. Yes.
Yes, just ask me the questions where I can say yes, and then we'll go to the next one.
Okay. Well, true or false next time. True or false.
Yes.
Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate the time.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Rainer.
See you later. Thank you.
All right. We survived that, I think. Wow. It was close. I'm not sure we survived that.
I felt like that was like Infinity War? Like we just went up against Thanos and haha, that's funny. Yeah. He's like, wow. It's great.
That's the first time we have been mocked by our guest. Normally it's the other way around a little bit. Normally we're throwing a little bit of shade at the guest. That time he brought it. Yeah, he brought it back.
Gloves are off.
Wow. That was good, though.
I need to go sit in a corner and cry for a few minutes. But I'm so grateful for Dr. Rainer to come on, obviously. Incredibly smart man who's done so much research, who can really give a lot of wisdom. We're really grateful for Dr. Rainer to come on the show. Thank you very much, sir.
No, and I thought it was really good, and he gave some great answers. Because as you read a little bit about the future of the local church, you think about this online stuff and digital church, there tends to be kind of two extremes. There's the people who are like, the established church is over, right. We're going to be all online, don't even bother meeting. And then there's the other side that's like, the internet's evil, don't touch it, if you're not meeting in line.
It's somewhere in the book of Revelation.
And it tends to be the two extremes, and he gave some really, really strong answers there to show us, look, this is a tool, it's to reach people. By all means, let's engage in it, but you're still never going to replace the actual gathering of the local church. That is timeless, no matter the tools that bring people in and reach people. So.
No, so grateful for the wisdom. Make sure to go check out churchanswers.com. Great resource in the midst of, don't go to Google, go to churchanswers.com. You'll find an actual answer.
And they have a daily email that comes out, I believe, with the podcast, and I'm just looking at my email right now. See if I have one here. So yesterday, churches are moving forward. Just some great information in these emails every day from churchanswers.com. If you're a church leader, pastor, sign up for those. Because how often is it that we're struggling with something, we check our email inbox, and there's an email that is actually something that is very beneficial and helpful right in the moment. And he does have I think every Thursday or every Wednesday, he does a webcast where you can join in. I'm going to join in this week and ask a bunch of questions.
Make sure there's no corollaries.
Yeah, I'm going to like as many corollaries as possible.
I mean, we're going to have to seriously vet these questions.
I think I have to Google corollary.
As a corollary to the show, segue. So we're excited because we will, this will be our third stone. Seminary president for Gateway Baptist Seminary in California will be coming on here. We're so excited that he's making the time, and he's getting up early because they're like 3 hours behind us. So this will be a really fun show. So please check in for that. We are going to.
He's coming live?
He will be live.
Yeah, that's 7 a.m.
I feel like we should like send him a Starbucks gift card to like.
That's not a bad idea. Yeah.
For
we could get the big coffee out there is Phil's.
Phil's.
We could get Phil's delivered to his office.
Because I know a Phil here, and I wouldn't drink his coffee.
No, Phil's is a bigger deal out there. So yeah, we could get Phil's coffee delivered.
Is Phil big? Like my Phil's bigger out there?
And it's Dr. Org.
Right.
Dr. Org. We think. We're pretty
so.
sure. We will figure that out by next
I
week.
asked somebody I know at New Orleans Seminary, and that's what they told me.
Org. Because we were saying Yorg.
Correct.
Right.
We will see what happens.
Which can't be more embarrassing than
right
Thom
now.
Rainer level
not-
us.
yeah.
Yeah, so
I thought there was one thing. Never mind.
So Dr. Org, next week, we're excited about that, hear about what's going on in the Bay Area. Beautiful part of the country. Just, have you been to the Bay Area?
I have not. I've not made it there. I've been to LA, but I've not gone to Northern California.
I've not been to LA, so I've only been to Northern California. It's a different culture.
I hear that.
Like the marijuana thing is there. They just talked about acid here on the morning show.
There's a point where it's too much.
Yeah.
And then after that, we will have Dr. Chitwood, who president of the IMB and former PhD student of Dr. Rainer.
Yeah, you will love the interview of Dr. Paul Chitwood. We normally don't give this away, but it was one of the ones that has been pre-recorded. You can tell when we don't have matching shirts between the opening monologue and the interview. But this one was pre-recorded, so we already know what it's going to look like. And it's a great interview. You're not going to want to miss it. And I believe that's November 24th.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's our fun. That's the season finale.
Yeah, so it'll be the end of season 1 with, I don't know how many episodes, 30, so this is 32, 33, 34. So 34 episodes in season 1.
Ooh, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Normally it's like 22 for
And then we'll be back in January with a whole new lineup of guests.
Hope so.
Who's coming on in January, Rob?
I don't know. Friends of the show.
Friends of the show.
Friends of the show will be on.
We got to start booking.
We will. So again, we are taking requests from you guys who are watching. Who would you like on the show? What questions would you like us to ask him? Do you have Fast 5 questions that you think I should be asking?
Because he's running out of material. Is what's happening.
Not when we have Dr. Rainer feeding us great questions.
Yeah, that's true.
That was impressive.
He's firing back. Your questions are dumb, guys. Here's what you should be asking.
Yeah, that's what the whole interview was.
Yeah.
This is what you meant to say?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Don't worry, guys. I'll be the